a brand new constitution, adding that the 1963 constitution recognized the country as a four-legged country where each region developed at its own pace, which was not the case in recent times.
One, we want restructuring of Nigeria. If we have to be, there's to be a Nigerian to continue. Number two, we want the zoning to continue. It is conventional. When the Constitution did not provide for a succession, when Yar'Adua died, was ill, convention was adopted.
On his part, the national president of the Middle Belt Forum, Pogo Bitrus, said the way forward for Nigeria is complete restructuring.
It emphasizes that if the security situation is not dealt with and banditry stopped or reduced to a the barest minimum, it would not be reasonable to have proper, feasible, please. It will not be feasible to have proper elections in 2023.
The meeting had in attendance leaders of various socio-cultural organizations, including Afenifere for Southwest, Ohaneze Ndigbo for the Southeast, Pan-Niger Delta Forum PANDEF for the South-South, and the Middle Belt Forum for the Middle Belt. Thomas Sado reporting.
The Imo State Commissioner of Police Abutu Yaro says men of the command have arrested suspected killers of Ahmed Gulak, former aide to former President Goodluck Jonathan. The police commissioner confirmed this to newsmen in Owerri. He said the command acted on credible information before rounding up the assailants in Afo and Yogugu Mbasi. Yaro said the 6 hoodlums who carried out the killings and 4 other members of their gang were fatally injured. 3 out of the 4 vehicles used in the attack were impounded. 3 AK-47 rifles, 1 pistol, 5 AK-47 magazines, and 92 rounds of live ammunition and criminal charms were recovered. The governor of Taraba State, Mr. Darius Ishaku, has raised an alarm that Nigeria is sliding very fast into a failed state. Ishaku raised the alarm in Jalingo during an interactive session with journalists to mark his 6th year in office. He said that the increasing spate of insecurity across the country and the inability of the military and other security agencies to address the situation were indications of anarchy. The governor described the inability of the Nigerian military to flush out insurgency, particularly in the northeast of the country, as a national disgrace. He noted that all hands must be on deck for the country to overcome the current challenges by reviewing the country's security architecture.
See here, the vital component of the state police is removed. I'm called executive governor. Executive in what? If I cannot implement the decision I take with the troops under my command. So the state police is imperative, is necessary, is must come to stay.
You're watching the World News on Independent Television. Still to come. Israel Prime Minister warns that coalition government is a threat to security. You can watch ITV News on Roku TV in UK, America, Africa and other parts of Europe, and also on Smart TV, Amazon Fire TV and Android TV. View us on TSTV on channel 364, nationwide on Star Times channel 130 and Gold TV channel 107. Follow us also on our Twitter handle at ITVRadioNG, YouTube www.youtube.com/ITVRadioNG, website www.itvradionigera.live stream us at itvradionigera.com. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ITVRadioNG, Instagram at ITVNG. Download the app today from your mobile Play Store. Do stay with us. Now from the foreign scene, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that a proposed unity government aimed at replacing him would be a danger to the country's security. He urged fellow right-wingers not to back a deal after ultra-nationalist Naftali Bennett said he would form a coalition with a centrist party. The report. Mr. Netanyahu's opponents have until Wednesday to form a government. If they are successful, it will bring to an end the rule of the country's longest-serving prime minister. Mr. Netanyahu, who faces serious corruption charges and could go to jail, fell short of a decisive majority at a general election in March. It was the country's fourth inconclusive vote in 2 years, and again he failed to secure coalition allies. But his opponents may only be able to form a minority government propped up by Arab members of parliament. Mr. Netanyahu accused Mr. Bennett of misleading the public and of carrying out the fraud of the century, a reference to the Yamina party leader's previous public promises not to join forces with Yair Lapid, the century's opposition leader. Mr. Bennett, 49, earlier announced in a televised address that his party would join talks to form a unity government. Before the announcement, Israeli media reported that under the proposed terms of the deal, Mr. Bennett would replace Mr. Netanyahu as prime minister and later give way to Mr. Lapid, 57, in a rotation agreement. The arrangement has not been officially confirmed. The proposed coalition would bring together factions from the right, the left, and the of Israel politics. While the parties have little in common politically, they are united in their desire to see Mr. Netanyahu's time in office come to an end. Sharon Ajayi reporting. Danish media has reported that Denmark's Secret Service helped the U.S. spy on European politicians, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, from 2012 to 2014. According to a report by Danish media, the Defense Intelligence Service collaborated with the U.S. National Security Agency to gather information. Intelligence was collected on other officials from Germany, France, Sweden, and Norway. Similar allegations emerged in 2013. Then secrets leaked by U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden alleged tapping of the German Chancellor's phone by the NSA. When those allegations were made, the White House gave no outright denial, but said Mrs. Merkel's phone was not being bugged at the time and would not be in future. Germany is a close ally of the U.S. In a new report shared with several European news agencies, the NSA is said to have accessed text messages and the phone conversations of a number of prominent individuals by tapping into Danish internet cables in cooperation with the FE. Plans to rapidly relocate hundreds more worked for the British military and the UK government, mostly as interpreters, have been announced. Including family members, more than 3,000 Afghans are expected to be allowed to settle in the UK, joining 1,300 who have already done so. The decision comes amid fears for their safety as international troops prepare to leave the country. Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said it was only right to accelerate plans. He added that those being relocated were those that might otherwise be a risk of reprisal from the Taliban. The issue has been a concern since British forces ended combat operation in Helmand in 2014, with troops who served there being among the most vocal in their support for measures to protect those who assisted them during their deployments. Still on the foreign scene, China has announced that it will allow each couple to have up to 3 children, marking the end of a strict 2-child policy. According to state media, the change was approved by President Xi Jinping in a Politburo meeting. The report. It comes after a once-in-a-decade census showed that China's population grew at its slowest pace in decades. This added pressure on Beijing to boost measures for couples to have more babies and avert a population decline. China's census released earlier this month showed that around 12 million babies were born last year, a significant decrease from the 18 million in 2016 and the lowest number of births recorded since the 1960s. It was widely expected after the census data results were released that China would relax its family policy rules. In 2016, the government ended a controversial one-child policy and allowed couples to have 2 children. But the reform failed to reverse the country's falling birth rate, despite a 2-year increase immediately afterwards. China's population trends have, over the years, been largely shaped by the one-child policy, which was introduced in 1979 to slow population growth. Families that violated the rules faced fines, loss of employment, and sometimes forced abortions. Sharon Ajayi reporting. Severe flooding has hit the Canterbury region in New Zealand with a state of emergency in place. Heavy rains flooded the region yesterday, closing roads, sparking dramatic helicopter rescues and sending civil defense scrambling to set up emergency welfare shelters. Hundreds of Wamakira residents were ordered to immediately evacuate their homes last night, with stop banks on 2 flooded rivers at the risk of failing or expected to give way. For that wrong caption. Vietnam hopes to tackle a new COVID outbreak by mass testing risk groups in Ho Chi Minh City and introducing new social distancing measures. The efforts come in response to a new cluster linked to a religion major. Vietnam has had relatively success in controlling the virus, but cases have been rising over the past weeks. Over the weekend, officials warned of a new dangerous hybrid variant discovered in the country. The government says the new variant combines features of the mutations first identified in India and the UK and is easily transmissible by air. Overall, the country has registered just over 7,000 infections and 47 deaths, but the latest spike accounts for more than half of the total number of cases. In our back to our earlier report, where severe flooding has hit the Canterbury region in New Zealand with a state of emergency in place. Heavy rain flooded the region yesterday, closing roads, sparking dramatic helicopters rescue and sending civil defense scrambling to set up emergency welfare shelters. Hundreds of Wamakira residents were ordered to immediately evacuate their homes last night, with spot banks on 2 flooded rivers at risk of failing or expected to give way. Roads remain closed and evacuations are continuing for some residents as emergency services and authorities in Canterbury continue to deal with the aftermath of the rain. Residents of other parts of Canterbury have been warned to prepare for an evacuation should it be needed. Texas legislature was on the verge on Sunday of signing off on some of the most restrictive voting measures in the U.S., putting the GOP on the brink of a major victory in their nationwide efforts to tighten voting access following the 2020 election. A vote in the State House expected later is the last barrier to sending Republican Governor Greg Abbott a raft of election changes that would eliminate drive-through voting, empower partisan poll watchers, and impose new requirements in order to cast a ballot by mail in Texas, which already has some of the toughest voting laws in the nation. The 67-page measure would also eliminate drive-through voting and 24-hour polling centers, both of which Harris County, the state's largest Democratic stronghold, introduced last year. In a talking sport, world number 2 Naomi Osaka faces expulsion from the French Open and future Grand Slams if she continues to refuse to speak to the media. Organizers say Japan's Osaka said last week she will not give any news conferences during Roland Garros because she wants to protect her mental health. She was fined $15,000 for not doing media after Sunday's first round win over Romania's Patricia Mariatic. The second seed won 6-4, 7-6, 7-4. A joint statement from the 4 Grand Slam organizers said Osaka also faces more substantial fines and future Grand Slam suspension. The Grand Slams added that following Osaka's announcement on Wednesday, Roland Garros teams asked the 23-year-old to reconsider her position and were unsuccessful in their attempt to check on her well-being. On Wednesday, Osaka released a statement saying she would not face the media during the course of the French Open, citing the impact of news conferences on the mental health of players. She said expecting players to answer questions after a defeat amounted to kicking a person while they are down. Still on sport, Manchester City midfielder Kevin De Bruyne has suffered a fractured nose and left hospital following his collision with Antonio Rudiger during Saturday's 1-0 defeat in the Champions League final against Chelsea. He posted on Twitter that he just got back from the hospital with a diagnosis as acute nose bone fracture and left orbital fracture, adding that he felt okay now. The player said he was, however, disappointed about the outcome of the match. The 29-year-old playmaker had to be replaced by Gabriel Jesus in the 60th minute on Saturday evening, following a collision with Blues centre-back Antonio Rudiger. De Bruyne will hope to make a full recovery for Belgium's Euro 2020 campaign, which begins in less than 2 weeks from now. And now to end the world news, a look again at the major stories. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that a proposed unity government aimed at replacing him would be a danger to the country's security. He urged fellow right-wingers not to back a deal after ultra-nationalist Naftali Bennett said he would form a government with a centrist party. It was reported that China has announced that it will allow couple to have up to 3 children, marking the end of a strict 2-child policy. According to state media, the change was approved by President Xi Jinping in a Politburo meeting. And finally, heard that severe flooding has hit the Canterbury region in New Zealand, with a state of emergency in place. Heavy rain flooded the region yesterday, closing roads, sparking dramatic helicopter rescues and sending civil defense scrambling to set up emergency welfare shelters. And that's the world news is read by Sharon Ajay. Thank you very much for watching. Join us tonight at 7:30 p.m. for our main news package. Good afternoon.
Independent television certainly